California missions. In the late 1700s, Christian ethnocentricity was being spread by missionaries and soldiers throughout Mexico to California. Native Indians were put to work on the missions. The missions were deadly to most Indians because they were treated harshly and unfair. Soldiers were also put to work, but they were rewarded by the Spanish with large grants of land. Mexico won its independence in the early 1800s and took California under their control. The Mexico government closed the missions and created their own system of land grants. The Spanish gave most missionaries and soldiers land grants, but the ones who know how to speak English and Spanish were granted a rancho of 50,000 acres or more. Life on ranchos. On ranchos, they had fiestas and weddings. Usually they celebrated with singing, dancing, and brilliant displays of horsemanship. Usually ranchos were so big that it would take a day's journey to travel to a neighbor's house. When neighbors made the journey, they would bring news from the outside world to share. The houses were usually made of adobe brick, and everything they used inside the houses, they made themselves. The explorer's legacy. In the early 1800s, Lewis and Clark set out to explore the West to make friendly contact with the Indian tribes for trade. But the expedition's main intentions were to find an easier route across North America, which is also known as the Northwest Passage. During their expedition, Lewis and Clark's group had to maneuver around obstacles like blizzards and strong currents. By the beginning of winter, Lewis and Clark made camp near a mountain village and met a woman named Sacagawea. Her husband and her infant son joined the group. Lewis and Clark believed that Sacagawea would be able to help them on the expedition by translating for them. By the spring of 1805, Lewis and Clark left camp and took off up the Mississippi River, and by the late summer, the explorers could see the Rocky Mountains. But it wasn't time to celebrate because their first sight of winter would block their passage through the mountains. Fortunately, Sacagawea's tribe gave them horses to explore the mountains. They arrived safely in the Northwest Passage, but they almost died from starvation. If it wasn't for the Nez Perce tribe, who nourished them back to health. By the time winter was closing, the explorers reached their final destination, the Pacific Ocean. This event was on December 3, 1803. The explorers headed westward after a harsh winter in Oregon. By September 1806, 2 years and 4 months from setting out, they returned to St. Louis. They are remembered by traveling 8,000 miles, mapping a route to the Pacific, establishing good relation with the Western Indians, and bringing back priceless information about the West and its people. They also involved the settlement of the West. In 1806, there was another expedition to expose the southern part of the Louisiana Territory. These expeditions found the mountains known today as Pikes Peak and went on to explore the Spanish territory. There they reported the wealth of the Spanish towns which had began the trade with the Spanish. Along with the other expeditions, an explorer named John C. Fremont mapped the territory between the Mississippi Valley and the Pacific Ocean in the 1840s. What he reported inspired many Americans to settle down in the West. Trappers. Trappers lived a free and adventurous life. For instance, Jim Beckworth was a slave who fled Virginia and became a trapper. Jim was captured by the Indians and lived with them for 6 years, up until he left in 1836. He then became an explorer, army scout, and a trapper. In the mid-1800s, he discovered the lowest passage across the Sierra Nevada mountains. Mountain men explored most of the West trails. Then trading posts turned into supply stations. They had harsh lives because bears and wolves raided their camps. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you've learned something.